Hello, Legend of the Samurai here with the U-Shin Showa X Key. I'll call this a moderate pin count Japanese dimple lock. This one was loaned to me by Ken Nixon at Pyrolock, so thanks for that. It's reminiscent of Showa's NX cylinder, which I've shown before, but this one it doesn't live up to just being a two-row version of that. It has a couple of problems that make it much simpler to get into. So it is a two-row lock. This one has 8 pins installed. I believe that's the minimum number they use. I think it can go up to 12, but I'm unable to find a maximum number for that. Pins are arranged such that in this lock at least, 2 sets are completely opposed. So those pins meet in the middle of the keyway and push on each other. And that should be a security feature, but in this case it's been implemented incorrectly. So I'm going to go in with a normal flag. There is one standard driver. All other 7 are spooled. So I'll find the standard first. It's in the back on the right. So set the standard, and then I'll set spool first one on the right, second pin on the left, and now the last pin on the left, and we are open. I only touched 4 pins, specifically this one, this one, this one, and this one. I did not have to touch any of these. And so theoretically, another thing that having these opposed pin stacks should do is this should relock at 180 degrees. So as I go past the drivers, they can't fall into the keyway, but they will snag. So pop them out of the way. So I should get it to relock right here. And it just doesn't. So there's the other drivers. And that's full circle. So what they're going for here is with these opposed pins, if they're meeting in the middle, one should be overset, the other should be underset. And so if you apply tension, you've already got a pin or 2 overset, and that should cause problems. Some locks do this quite effectively, like the Bantam M2002. This one falls victim to simple physics, specifically Hooke's law. So, take out our pins first. So we have key pins, similar to the standards from the NX, but none of these use the spooled key pins like the NX does. And then here we have these very short spooled drivers with a bit on top to center the spring and to prevent overlifting. But they do not act as T-pins. They are not tall enough for that. Side. And these sliding covers are initially crimped in place. You just have to lift up these 3 sections to get them sliding again. And here in the 3rd chamber we have a much stronger spring. because that is dealing with a ball bearing, which is not an active pin, but it drives a detent pin that centers the plug. Go. Sometimes that one doesn't want to come out. So this is a shorter, inactive pin with a depression on top. And with the ball bearing pushing into that, it centers the plug. All right, and there's our one standard driver. Show these. We have all standard key pins and all spooled drivers, except for that one there. And then take the plug out. One thing to caution, they do Loctite these screws in there, so there is a decent chance that one will strip. One of these actually had twisted off entirely and needed to be replaced with a new screw. So they did not want it reassembled from the back. There's nothing special in here. So here's our housing. Have holes drilled on either side, and you can see straight through those opposing pin chambers. And here's our plug. We have normal dimple milling with one constriction, no overmilling or anything else like that. And you can see straight through the two opposing chambers. There is this extra feature here. It's a blind hole with a stub in the middle of it, and I do not know what that is for. There is no matching feature in the housing. No warding to speak of. So now we get to the problem of why 4 of these pins did absolutely nothing. And it comes down to the fact that they are using the same springs for all of them, and the fact that their key pins are different lengths. So all of them, the top portion is the same length. It's about 1.3 millimeters tall. And they vary the length of the bottom portion to change the bitting height. So this long one, this pin is 6 millimeters long total. This one is 5.6 millimeters long. And the two bitting heights for that are the deep one and the medium one. So the problem comes from the fact that neither of these pins will bottom out in their chambers. They will meet and touch the other pin before they rest on that milling. So if I push on one, it will move the other, and vice versa. Which means that the overall length of the pins comes into play. If you've got a fixed distance between the cover strips on either side here, and you have identical springs in between them, and you have two key pins of differing lengths that meet in the middle, effectively, the longer key pin has a shorter chamber where its spring is, so its spring is more compressed if those pins were in the middle. A spring that is compressed more, by Hooke's law, pushes linearly more. So it has a larger spring force pushing on that pin, which will cause the entire assembly to shift to the opposite side. as the longer pin needs to sit lower in the chamber to be set, because of the tiny little bevels on the drivers and the key pins, which allow for the lock to function normally, it pushes over far enough that all of those pins set themselves constantly. And I've tested this, I've reassembled this with just those 4 pins in there, and the plug spins freely. They do not lock. So I do not know if this happens for all locks. This one is a brand new cylinder, so it's not worn down. That's not the issue. And I don't know if it happens for all of the varying bitting heights, although given how far these are definitely different, one is much deeper than the other, and I don't think they would be able to push it much further. There's a chance that if they used one of these maximum lifts and they had a corresponding very, very deep pin, it might lock up, but at least in this case, those pins do nothing for this lock, which seems to be, in my opinion, something of a design flaw. So, don't let the key scare you. It looks like it has 8 pins, and technically they're there, but 4 of them aren't doing anything. So if you get a chance to pick one of these up, it's an interesting lock. It's not nearly as difficult as it looks on the surface, but still fun to pick. You get some good feedback off the spools. All right, go close on these one more time. Thanks again to Ken Nixon for loaning me this lock, and thank you for watching. Have a nice day.